Alright guys, so in this lecture, we are going to talk about variables, right? As promised, when I was introducing you to data types, so I said we are going to talk about variables in the later lectures, and that is because, we can't explain variables without talking about data types, and we can't explain data type without explaining without using variables. So we have to ignore one for one, or choose one over one. So as mentioned, variables are just something that make storing data possible for you, and but now you're now assigning a particular name or identifier to your data. So when you store a particular value to a particular variable, then you already know you already assign a variable name. So whenever you need the data, all you need to do is call that variable and you'll be able to retrieve the data, right? So it is as simple as that. For example, you will notice that when we were trying to store the age, when we're talking about data types, we store it under an identifier called age, AGE, right? Then whenever we need to call it, maybe we want to alert the age, all we need to do is we don't need to specify the age exactly. We just need to call age, and automatically it will retrieve the value assigned to the variable. All we need to do when we want to declare a variable is we need to specify data type, right? So let's assume we want to specify data type of name, right? So this is simply it. So you can see this is the data type and this is the variable name. So it doesn't have to be name, it can be anything. For example, I can say my first name, you can say I can say my first name. It can be any name. So but try to make it descriptive, right? Based on what you want. For example, this is it. So this is my variable name, right? And this is my data type. So when you are defining a variable, you must specify the data type which you intend to store under that variable. So now, what I've done is just the declaration. And as you've seen so far, we don't just do this. Basically, we usually assign something to the variable, right? So for example, we've been saying equal to something. So if you remember the string class, so we say maybe Juliet, you know, maybe Juliet Doe, right? So you can see now, when you call this variable, so this is the variable, right? So when you call the variable, all you get is you get this Juliet Doe. So let's quickly try that. So I can alert this first name. Then, so let me save and I'll compile. Then you can see I have no error. So I'll launch this. You can see it is telling me Juliet Doe. So that is simply how to define a variable. So we've done it before. A variable is simply just you specifying the type you want to store and what is the variable name, what identifier, what do you want to use to be able to retrieve the value you are about to store, right? So now that is simply what variable is all about. So now the question is, can I give it any name of my choice? Yes, you can. And at the same time, no, you can't. So let me explain what I mean. So like I said, your variable name, I will advise you to make sure you can give it whatever name you want, but basically try to make sure that the name you are giving your variable is descriptive to what you want to use it for, so that maybe when someone else is trying to read your code, or maybe you yourself, you are trying to read your code after months or weeks or years of writing the code, you'll be able to understand the code properly, right? So that is one of the thing. Try to make sure that it is your variable name is descriptive, even if you have the choice of choosing any name of your choice. And at the same time, you do not have the choice of choosing any name of your choice. And this is the reason why. So let's assume you want to specify maybe a particular balance, let's say you now say okay, double, you now want, instead of saying maybe money, so you now decide to add maybe this, and you're like money equals, maybe you want to say, this, maybe you want to specify a balance. No, this is wrong. So yes, like I said, you are free to use whatever name, but you are not allowed to use any alphanumeric value. For example, you are not allowed to use this or this as the starting value. In fact, it's not even allowed to be used in the middle. For example, you are not allowed to say maybe this, this or this. No. You are not allowed to do this. You are not allowed. So any of this is not allowed into the. You're not allowed to do this. Maybe add it in the middle or behind, whatever. You're not allowed to use any of this. So not allowed. So even in the middle or at the beginning, you are not allowed, and not just for double. It's not allowed here as well. So you are not allowed to do any of this, right? So another thing is that you are not allowed to start your variable name with a number. So for example, you are not allowed to say maybe 6 or 56 or 5 or 1. You're not allowed. Yes, you're allowed to, you can use it at the end, maybe no this. So let me try this. So let me save and I'll compile. You can see it is not giving me any problem, right? But the moment I say, let me put this here, I won't be able to compile. I'm going to be having a syntax error. So let me save and compile. You can see I'm having a syntax error because we are not allowed to also use numbers. Let me just specify it here, or numbers at the beginning. Okay, you know what? Let's say what's not allowed. Things not allowed in naming. Oops, in naming. So first thing first, you are not allowed to start with alphanumeric values. Alphanumeric. So you're not allowed to start with a number, right? But you're allowed to start with an underscore. So this is allowed. So underscore is kind of special, So you can start with an underscore. So let me save. Oops, let me copy this and I'll paste. So let me save and I'll compile. You can see that I'm able to compile, right? So now let me try to launch it. You can see it is working fine. So you're allowed. So this is exceptional. Underscore is exceptional. You can start with an underscore, and at the same time, maybe you've seen me use this. You can, put an underscore, maybe, money Jew. Oops, this is random. Sorry about this. So, save and compile. You can see it is compiling. So you're allowed to use underscore at the beginning, or so you're allowed to use underscore at the beginning or in the middle, but you are not allowed to use any other alphanumeric values or numbers. So those are the first rules, right? Also, you are free to use a capital letter for everything or just a title case. For example, you can see this is working, which is a small letter, right? So you are free to do this, right? So, and at the same time, you are free to say money, and you are free to say money, billion, whatever. So you are free to use any kind of case, any letter case that you want, be all in caps or all in small letter or just title case or whatever. In fact, you are free to say you can see, okay, there's no need to do an example of such. You can see this is starting with a small letter, and this, taking a capital letter followed by small letter, so far it is a letter, right? So you are free to use this. So that's another thing. And another thing that is not allowed when you are giving a name to your variable is you are not allowed to use an identifier, a name that is already taken by MQL4. So you realize that some things are just standard for MQL4. For example, look at this on time function. It is like a standard thing for MQL4. Look at this void. This is a standard thing for MQL4. All of these data type, they are like standard things for MQL4. This alert, they're like standard thing for MQL4. So now let me give it a name like void, right? So let me just save void. Let me try to save and compile. You can see I'm having an error. So, and that is because it's telling me, you can see it is telling me unexpected token. So it is telling me that you are trying to give your variable a name that has been taken by MQL4. So please just take it back. Get another name, get a name. So now what you can do if you feel like, okay, this is the best thing to describe your variable, your value, so you can just put an underscore to make it a little bit different. So oops, you can put an underscore to make it different, and let's call that. You can see I'll save and compile. So you can see it is now working. So now how do you know the identifier or names that have been taken by MQL4? Let's pop up our browser. So we are going to say a reserved word in MQL4, right? So let's quickly search for that. So, and look at this on the documentation page of MQL4. So if I click on this, you see these are the reserved words for MQL4. You can see bool, char, just like the data types. All of the data types, like I said, you can't use them. You can't use class, you can't use char, you can't use bool for your variable name. So far, because they are already reserved. So you can only use as a data type, of course. So And you can see all of this. Well, we are yet to know about all of this, right? But for now, just have this at the back of your mind that okay, you can't use any of these names that have been taken, or that have been used by MQL4 to do one or two things. So you can see this. I will introduce you to break and case, and all of these, some of these later in the lectures. But for now, just have this at the back of your mind that you can't use any of these for your name. So yes, you are free to use any name of your choice, but at the same time, you are limited. So try to understand, try to know the name that have been reserved, that have been used by MQL4, and do not try to use them. So when you realize that maybe that particular name that has been used by MQL4 is something that best describe what you want, you can just add an underscore in the middle. You can just add an underscore in the middle, or at the end, or at the beginning, to make it a little different, right? So also note that your variables are case sensitive. So for example, let's say you say void, you specify capital letter V, right? And now you're trying to call small letter v. It is not the same thing. And that is because MQL4 generally is case sensitive. So something starting with capital letter is quite different from small letter, unless it is in a quote. So let me try to save and compile. You will notice that it is telling me that this is not declared. And that is because, okay, you know what, in the case where you are like, maybe I'm having an error. No. So now let's assume I'm giving, okay, let me call this balance. So let's say I call this balance, and I'm trying to say balance, capital letter B, right? So I'll save and I'll compile to see that. You can see it is telling me that I did not declare this, and that is because this is quite different from this. But the moment I change it back to small letter, which is the same to this, you can see it is going to tell me that okay, everything is fine. So that is that. Another option is, let's say you are trying to use a variable that has been taken, a variable name that has been taken by MQL4, and it is the best to describe your data or what you are trying to store. Of course, that means you can just manipulate the title in the case. So for example, maybe you are interested in void, and you are seeing that, okay, maybe you are interested in void and you are seeing that it has been taken. You know what, you can simply give it capital letter V. Only the small letter V has been taken by MQL4. So just use this. So what I was trying to explain in the beginning is that we have something called declaration, we have something called initialization. So for example, when I wrote this, let me not take this out. So I'll just add another one. So let's say you want to store age of somebody, but you are yet to know the age, but you are sure that you are going to get it in the future. So what you can do is you can declare the variable. So let's say I want to declare the age of somebody. I can simply say int age, right? So since I don't know the value yet, so I can just end it with semicolon, and instead of assigning a random value that might not be true, so I'll just give it a value of, I'll just put semicolon. So this is called declaration, right? So this is the point at which I declare this variable. So that is what I'm trying to that is what this means. So now first time you want to assign a value to a variable, so that is called initialization. So let's say, and I come here, and I know the age, and I want to assign a value. So this equal to is using assigning a value, right? So we are going to look at operators in the coming lectures, and you understand all of this better. But for now, just stay with me. So when you're now trying to assign a value to the age, let's say you want to assign 77, so you can now add this. Then you are now initializing. So this is called initialization, right? So try to understand. This is, let's say you are yet to know the value that this particular variable will be taking. So you can just do this to declare. So you are not just limited to this. So it can be this as well. It can be any data type. So it can be name, right? So it can be is US citizen, it can be Boolean, it can be anything. Declaration, it can be anything. All you need to do is specify the data type, specify the the variable name, and give it a semicolon to end the statement. So you can say is US citizen. So all of these are called declaration. And the moment you start assigning values to them, right? So then they become now you are now initializing, right? So this is initialization. Then you can say is US citizen, then you can say true, false, true or false. Then you can always call them. So you can just call them, and I save and compile. right? So you can see it is working fine. And so if we run this, we are going to get 77, right? So that is that. So now the question is, what about this that we've done? So we know that this is the value we are expecting, and what should we do? So what have we done here? So this is called declaration and initialization, right? So this is declaration and initialization. So you are declaring and so now you are declaring and you are initializing at the same time. So that is what you've done. So now in this lecture, what we've learned so far is we learn how to declare a variable, right? Then the naming criteria, the naming condition at which we use in guiding ourselves when we are giving or assigning a name to our variable, right? So now we also know the reserved words, that name that we should not even try, name that we should not compete with when we are naming our variable, right? Then we've learned about declaration and initialization of a variable, right? So in the next lecture, we are going to talk about variable scope. I'll see you in the next one.